Okay, we'll start with this. A second look at former champion Mio Yoshida's upcoming Stay Busy fight with Mexico's own Edith de Jesus Flores at the Haverhill High School towards the end of this month on the 25th, a little over a week from now. As stated, it's a Stay Busy fight. You can tell just by the opponent. Edith Ramos of Mexico, who's coming off of 8 consecutive losses, some of which have been against some very familiar faces like Jessica Neri Plata, Ebeth Zamora Silva, Marilyn Badillo, Adelaida Ruiz, Amanda Galle, most recently Rosa Torres, except the loss to Rosa wasn't recent. That was all the way back there in September of 2024. So Edith is a fighter who hasn't fought in well over a year, and this is who Mio is going to be facing towards the end of this month. Mio Yoshida, who was last in action last year in February opposite the ring Beata Dudek. She will have some ring rust to shake off too, sporting a professional record of 18 wins with 5 losses and no draws, no recorded knockouts, having never been knocked out. In 23 professional bouts, her opponent, Edith, has an upside-down record, more losses than victories. She's 7-23, with only 1 recorded knockout, having been knocked out 3 times. 33 years old to Mio Yoshida, who's 38 and not getting any younger, still aspiring to get Shernika Johnson in the ring. Shernika, who has all the alphabet titles at this weight, but she is arguably not the only champion. There is also Dina Thorsland. Dina is this division's lineal and ring magazine champion, and until her and Shernika Johnson settle up with each other, there are actually 2 champions at this weight, not just 1. Who could interrupt them is the former champion Mio Yoshida, who's got a top spot via the IBF's rank standings. She is in position to challenge Shernika Johnson. Could be her mandatory. It hasn't been ordered yet, obviously, but beyond this fight this month, it could be. Now, I'm expecting Mio Yoshida to win this fight against Edith towards the end of this month, though I don't view her as any sort of a threat to Shernika Johnson's reign as champion. If the fight were to get made, yeah, I think Shernika Johnson wins. Mio Yoshida is best described as a close quarters pressure fighter, but one that has very slow feet. She's quite flat-footed. Her footwork is not the best. Her power is all right, and so is her work rate, her engine, but her footwork is not the best. Her defense is leaky. She's not that quick, not that fast on her feet, and doesn't have that much speed in those hands. That if she were able to get Shernika Johnson in the ring, Shernika would likely beat her at her own game. Beat her from the inside out within close quarters, because in more recent years, in recent fights, Shernika has really leaned into pressure fighting. She's got more than one way of fighting a fight. She can be a boxer when she needs to, and a puncher when she needs to. When I first saw her in action years ago, she was more of a boxer then, and more of a mover, whereas these days, she's really leaned into taking it to her opponents, mowing them down, and overpowering them. I think she would overpower Mio Yoshida. I don't know that she would knock her out because Mio has never been knocked out, but I would definitely favor Shernika to win that fight. It's just a question of what comes first, a Mio Yoshida title defense or a Dina Thorsland showdown, because Dina, like Shernika, is promoted by MVP, and they've got unfinished business. Getting a bit ahead of ourselves, momentarily, in the not-so-distant future, Mio Yoshida will be returning to action towards the end of this month, and I expect her to win in what could be a segue to a Shernika Johnson showdown.
Shakur, right? As a peer, as a rival, you rate him.
Look, I think Shakur is a great candidate and a great fighter. Yes. Do I think that he believes in himself wholly? No.
Okay.
Just hitting me with jabs alone, and left hooks where I was catching them majority of the night. That doesn't win you fights. I'm kind of flattered that that Andre Ward and Terrence Bud Crawford thought that Shakur could finish me.
Why would he be flattered by that? I would think he would be insulted that they thought Shakur Stevenson, who doesn't really knock people out, might knock out Teofimo. He said that Shakur Stevenson's style doesn't really win him fights. Won him your fight? A fight where I don't remember Teofimo Lopez winning a round. A single round in that contest that wasn't much of a contest. How could you say that doesn't win him fights? Yo, fighters sometimes say some stupid fucking shit, man. What was more thought-provoking is that he said Shakur Stevenson doesn't have full confidence in himself, and that's why he fights the way that he fights. Is that the case?
Shakur Stevenson is best described as a pure boxer, which we've already talked about to no end, and you know that pure boxers are often safety first. On the move, on the go, behind the lead hand, fighting at a safe distance. That's how they all fight. Shakur Stevenson, Sky Nicholson.
That's how they all fight.
Devin Haney, William Skull, Caleb Plant, Lerone Richards.
That's how they all fight.
Arislandi Lara, Josh Kelly, you name them. They all have that in common. Fighting at a safe distance, safety first, at all times. But why is that? Is it because they're lacking confidence? Like a Teofimo Lopez says, is that why Shakur fights the way that he fights? Because he's lacking confidence?
I don't know if it's a nature or nurture kind of thing. Underneath it all, I feel that fighters have an internal rhythm, and based on that, that's what dictates how they go about fighting a fight.
An internal rhythm.
There are only so many punches you can throw. A jab, a straight, a cross, a hook to the body, a hook to the head, an uppercut.
There are only so many punches you can throw. It's how you throw them and when you throw them and how many times you throw them that dictates what kind of style you got, what style you lean into. Shakur's style is that of a pure boxer. Pure boxers are often economic, they don't throw that much, and when they throw, it's usually from a safe distance.
Pure boxer, even in a fight that they're winning, that they're dominating, aren't greedy with their combinations. They always have safety in mind. Now, is that because they are lacking confidence, like Teofimo says? The confidence to bang in the booth and fight in the pocket, put punches together. Is that from a lack of confidence, or is that, if it ain't broke, don't fix it? If I can beat you with just a jab and a bit of movement,
I'm gonna beat you with just a jab and a bit of movement. I'm not gonna let you into the fight.
Understanding that some bit of what Teofimo now has to say is just him being a sore fucking loser. You got 12-0'd, my friend. You're not really in a position to criticize how he fights or his lack of confidence when whatever you've got going on wasn't enough to get the W. Wasn't enough for you to keep your belt.
But is that a lack of confidence we see in pure boxers? Is that why they're not confident enough to let more punches go and fight in the pocket? Is that what that is?
Like I said, I don't know if it's nature or nurture, because in the nurture sense of it, it's you really lean into a style and you train that way and you fight that way, it becomes habitual, a force of habit.
Maybe it's a bit of both? That you have a natural inclination to fighting a certain way, and once you start fighting that way, it becomes a force of habit.
Both nature and nurture. Maybe it's that way. Shakur Stevenson, catching wind of these comments, reacted by saying, "Bro sounds like every troll on the internet. Much respect to you, though, champ. Appreciate you for the opportunity."
Pure boxers generally don't have the best engines.
That's also worth noting that a pure boxer that tries to step out of character, throw a bit more punches, work more in a round, in a fight, sometimes they burn out, because that's just not what they do, how they're used to fighting a fight. It's another question of nature versus nurture. Are they economic because they don't have the engine to do more?
Nature.
Or do they not have the engine to do more because usually they don't have to?
Nurture.
It's hard to say, but understanding that there are only so many punches that you can actually throw. Only so many strategies in the sport of boxing. Which ones you use dictate what fighter you are. And I do think that is based on an internal rhythm.
How do we call these other fighters greats and so on and so forth? From the 80s, down from the 70s, 60s, and so on and so forth. Even the early 2000s, how do we say that these guys were all great and this and that, and this guy's a legend and respected and all across the world, but yet they have so many losses?
Because they fought everyone.
So what change is different now?
The Floyd effect.
You mean the black effect?
The Floyd effect. To me, as a Brit...
Teofimo describes the American emphasis on the O, the unbeaten record, as being the black effect. Is there more of an inclination in black boxing fans to care about the unblemished record than there is among Latino fans or white fans?
The unbeaten record.
Asians. I think in some boxing markets, the reason there's not as much of an emphasis on the unbeaten record is because it's a luxury they can't afford. Based on the number of world-class boxers a market produces, or the lack thereof, it's conceivable that fighters of a given region are likely going to lose.
So there's not as much emphasis on the O, and those markets are a lot more forgiving of those fighters if they do lose, say, in the Latin American market, whether you're talking about Argentinian fighters or Mexican fighters, Venezuelan.
Brazilians. The attitudes towards the unblemished record might have everything to do with the number of world-class fighters a region produces. If you look at the UK, which is one of the bigger boxing markets, even they don't place that much emphasis on the O, not as much as the Americans. Why is that? Is it because the United States, at least for a long period, produced most, if not all of, the world-class boxers, and these attitudes are the residual effect?
What lingers?
More specifically, are these attitudes unique to the black boxing fan? Does the black boxing fan care more about the O than, say, the white boxing fan, or the Latino boxing fan, the Asian boxing fan? And believe it or not, I agree with Teofimo.
I still think he's a fucking idiot. To some degree, I think he was race baiting and rage baiting.
Because he has a history of doing that, but I also think he's onto something, that the black boxing fan in America might care more about the O than somebody else because of Floyd Mayweather.
Andre Ward, Terrence Crawford, these fighters who retired undefeated.
I believe that among some black boxing fans, it's a point of pride that a good number of the fighters they've produced retired with unbeaten and unblemished records, at least on paper. As we also know, there have been some contentious decisions where it could be argued that the black fighter lost, like in the Mayweather versus Castillo fight, the first one, the Maidana fight,
Andre Ward's first fight with Sergey Kovalev, Devin Haney's more recent fight with Vasyl Lomachenko.
Could be argued that the black fighter lost in those fights, but the O remained. The unbeaten record stayed intact, and I believe that at least for some boxing fans, it's a point of pride. Thus, they place more emphasis on that than somebody else.
Yeah, I could see that.
That's why a lot of the time, when a guy loses a fight, those are the first guys to attack him. When Chocolatito lost to Sor Rungvisai, who did you see calling him a hype job?
Who did you see attacking him?
Tearing him down, as if he was never any good, and as if everything he had done up until that point where he lost doesn't count anymore.
You know, if Inoue loses, they're going to do the same thing to him, and Usyk.
So I would say that school of thought is more prevalent within the black community than the Latino community or the white community of boxing fans, the Asians.
The kicker is that was not always the case. You could argue that before the Floyd Mayweather era, where his O was the focal point of his career, a big part of the sales pitch, nobody actually cared about the unbeaten record. Nobody talked about it.
I would know because I was there, and we weren't sat around barbershops or street corners focusing on somebody's unblemished record. It was sort of accepted without saying it that at some point a fighter's gonna lose, but when they do, that doesn't mean they were bad or never any good.
What Teofimo describes as the black effect is also the Floyd effect. Those two things can be true at the same time, because he's the one caused people to focus on that.
And I don't think that boxing is better off for it. Some of the greatest fighters this sport has ever seen, some that people would argue are greater than Floyd, greater than Andre Ward. They've lost a fight or two, and it's not the end of the world that they did, and that doesn't make them bad fighters.
Yeah, boxing as an industry would be a lot better off if the boxing fans themselves stopped being perfectionists.
We're fighting.
They're just trying to use it for clout too.
But you signed the contract, right?
I'm the one that sent it. We sent the whole deal and everything. But you want to go play like you're a promoter and all this stuff, but then you're like, oh, but we still need you. We want you to cover everything. We'll cover your end. We gave you 50%. You could have sold it off to DAZN, but DAZN didn't want to deal with them.
But it would be unification. It would be a big fight. He's a champion. You're a champion.
It would have been a big fight. But you know, it's called betting on yourself. You don't bet on yourself. I bet on myself.
What would happen? You and Ryan. He's a champion. You're a champion.
You know that's how boxing works, right? Like, that's how it is. Like, right, they're 50%. They could do whatever they want. They could go sell it over here. They could go do this. They could profit everything off of it. Whatever. That our 50%. That's what we cover it.
No, but I read they said some ridiculous things that you don't sell. You're probably one of the most popular people in the world right now. Their claim was, when you fought in New York, it was 2,000 people snuck in. I've never seen more people at an event.
And that's what I'm saying. But no, forget about that, right? He doesn't sell either. That Devin Ryan fight was a complete crash. It was a complete crash. Nobody cared about that.
It didn't do good on pay-per-view at all.
It did horrible. It just did horrible. So you tell me. Like they thought, Ryan's fight got done fighting Tank and all that stuff, right? But they don't understand truly why that fight was so big. They did like 4 press conferences
Ryan was
that
promoting the shit out of it with his antics.
No, but yeah, right. But no, there was that. But then you also get Floyd and De La Hoya promoting it to get fighting, arguing with each, like, of course. And then you get the Zone on it and Showtime. It was just, it was, they put so much into it where it's like there's no way it didn't sell.
So the Haney fight, the Haney's going another direction. Ryan, you fought him, you beat him, now you're champion, he's champion. It would make a lot of sense to have that fight happen. Why doesn't Ryan? Ryan's a good fighter.
Ryan doesn't want to fight me.
Why not?
You heard Ellie Seckbach try to put a battery in Rolly's back, saying that he's popular and that people were sneaking into his fight. Those people that are sneaking in, they're not paying.
You ain't seeing no money from that.
Same way you don't see any money from illegal streams. Because people are stealing your fight doesn't make that an accurate gauge for how much marquee value you have.
Market value. What your fights generate at the gate, at the box office.
Maybe Rolly's known and popular in certain sectors, but in terms of marquee value, he doesn't yield much, and the truth is, neither does Devin. Those two things can be true at the same time. It's true that Devin's fight with Ryan,
It underperformed. It didn't do as well as they thought it would.
now point me in the direction of a Rolly Romero fight that brought in big pay-per-view buys and had a big gate. Which one?
You heard Rolly say it without saying it, that Devin isn't a big draw either.
Meaning I'm not a big draw, but neither is he. Otherwise, you wouldn't have attached the either. The truth is, Rolly's right in what he's saying about Devin, but Devin's right.
Cover your end. What happened to DHP? What happened to you being a promoter? You're expecting the other guy's promoter to cover all the risks? All the costs?
He doesn't want to bet on himself. Instead, he's waiting for the other guy's promoter to bet on him so he can make off like a bandit after the pay-per-view doesn't sell any fucking thing.
Rolly's right in what he's saying about Devin, but Devin was right not to accept the offer as it was, because as it was, if you were relying on the upside of that pay-per-view to get paid, you wouldn't have got paid, because there wouldn't have been one.
They're actually both right in what they're saying about each other, so what does it all mean? What it really means is that Haney versus Romero ain't box office.
It's not pay-per-view worthy. What it really means is that you guys want too much money for a fight that a lot of people aren't going to buy.
So then if a lot of people aren't going to buy it, why would it be on pay-per-view? Why should it be?
It shouldn't. And that's the long and the short of it. No content creator talks more about this than I do. There are too many box office fights that are not box office worthy, and oftentimes it's because the fighters want too much money.
Until they get real about what they're really worth, their careers are going to stagnate. The sport, it won't grow.
Because it can't behind a paywall.